The Grand Budapest Hotel by Wes Anderson is a film about a fictionalized version of the 20th century in Eastern Europe and the friendship between the Grand Budapest Hotel's concierge Monsieur Gustave and his lobby boy Zero. It explores the struggle between civilized behavior and barbarianism, with civilized behavior being represented in the film by Monsieur Gustave and his beloved hotel, and barbarianism being represented by, well,
stop it!
Everything else. But hidden inside this hotel is a much deeper message. Anderson's film is nostalgic for an idealized past that holds a romantic view on the world as a place of elevated moral character. It uses both the narrative themes within the film and the style of the film itself to pay homage to this time gone by. Everything from the mise en scène, to the cinematography, to the sound, and the narrative structure work to make the audience think back and sigh.
There it is. Times have changed.
First, let's look at the mise en scène. In typical Anderson fashion, everything is meticulously thought out. And while nothing seems all that familiar, it all works to create a mood or a feeling in the audience. Of particular interest, however, is the costuming, and even more particularly, the costume of Monsieur Gustave. Dressed from head to toe in perfectly pressed purple, he is the epitome of refinement and charm. Throughout the film, the Grand Budapest is depicted as a physical manifestation for these old-fashioned values. A welcoming, polite, and glamorous haven from the rest of the world. If this is the case, then Monsieur Gustave functions as a fragment of this hotel, a symbol of civilization in a world of barbarity.
I apologize on behalf of the hotel.
This extends even to his scent, l'air de panache, which is an often invisible prop that is still as crucial to his costume and even his identity as anything else he puts on.
He was, by the way, the most liberally perfumed man I had ever encountered.
L'air de panache.
L'air de panache.
You forgot the l'air de panache. I don't believe it.
Even without the rest of his elaborate costuming, he clings to his signature fragrance as a symbol of his personal attempt at elevating the world around him. He has made himself the beacon of the past he is clinging onto, built himself in the image of a more civilized time gone by that he seems to yearn for.
I think his world had vanished long before he ever entered it. But I will say, he certainly sustained the illusion with a marvelous grace.
Cinematography is another way that Anderson pays nostalgic homage to the past, particularly through the use of various different aspect ratios throughout the film. In an almost imperceptible shift, the action is shot in 1:37, 2:35, and 1:85 throughout the film. Each ratio represents the time period that it portrays and the rich film history that accompanies it. From the 1930s and the beginning of the Academy ratio, which conjures images of old Hollywood glamour and refinement. The 1960s and the invention of widescreen in the film industry's effort to set themselves apart from television, and the present-day ratio that is a familiar culmination of all this history. Anderson, an obvious cinephile, is able to use nothing more than some simple letterboxing to depict an entire saga of the magic of filmmaking, and show the way that the past has led us to where we are today. This honouring of history is at the heart of what his film is about, the idealization, respect, and remembrance of a time gone by. Sound. Another stylistic element that pays its respect to a bygone era, specifically the music, expertly curated by Alexandre Desplat, works on many levels to provide meaning for the audience. The Slavic feel of the music helps to place the film both temporally and spatially, indicating without words to the audience that the Grand Budapest Hotel takes place in Eastern Europe in the 1930s. Despite the tension that rose in this time and place in history, the score of the film remains upbeat even at its darkest points. This is a representation of the way that memory often makes light of a bad situation and ignores any pain. Indeed, the lives of many who lived in this period were sad, violent, and horrific, yet Anderson chooses instead to focus on a rosy and nostalgic view of the past.
I suppose you'd call that a draw.
Finally, for consideration of the meaning of this film, it is crucial to consider how the story is told. Grand Budapest delivers a narrative within a narrative, within a narrative, within a narrative. Each time period looks back at the time before with a sense of wistful idealism. I mean, you can see the way that girl looks at her book. The stories being told represent the way that people treasure stories of the past and pass them along from one to the other. Even at the deepest level of this narrative, you can see that Mr. Gustave feels the same about the passage of time as everyone else.
You see, there are still faint glimmers of civilization left in this barbaric slaughterhouse that was once known as humanity. Oh, fuck it.
Yeah, what he said. The best example of this, however, is Zero and his attachment to the Grand Budapest. An attachment which causes him to purchase the hotel in an effort to save a relic of a time that's passed him by. The Grand Budapest represents everything Zero idealizes from his past. Glamour, sophistication, excitement, and friendship. It is his youth and his best memories with the people he loved. It is also a source of great pain and loss, but pain and loss that seems to pale in the hierarchy of his memories.
The hotel I keep for Agatha.
See, for Zero, that time in his life is not perfect, but the memory of it is. And that is the message that the Grand Budapest Hotel is trying to portray. It is the nostalgia for a seemingly perfect past, even if that past is not necessarily any better than the present. The romanticism of things that only exist now in our memories. A melancholic longing to revisit that place to which you can never return.